Sitaram Goyal has beautifully written the Hindu resistance to Islamic invasion in the early times. One has to read those books. So we have our strength and we had our share in fighting, we did. But only in the post-independent India we are losing. In the pre-independent India, in spite of all difficulties we fought, but in post-independent India, we are troubled by our own people. I remember one story when blacksmiths and goldsmiths shops were adjacent to each other. Then somehow by accident one gold bit jumped into the blacksmith's yard and fell next to an iron piece. And the iron piece said, "Oh dear, how come you are here?" Then the gold piece said, "See, it's so bad. Somebody belonging to some other caste was beating me. I could not tolerate, so I jumped away." Then this says, the piece of iron says, "Your case is agreeable. A person not of your race, not of your class, is hitting you, the hammer. But in my case, the same person who suffered all the trials of mine is beating me. You just think of my fate and my situation." This is what happening in post-independent India. Well, less said is better. Now we shall focus on some of the salient features. I told about the physical and the spiritual levels and their mutual cooperating synthetic levels also. Generally, when we have two diverging viewpoints, we think they are opposed to each other. But they are acting at different planes. No way. If in the ground floor I have my kitchen, just above me, in the first floor, if somebody is having a bathroom, will my kitchen disturbs? Will my kitchen become disturbed? No. Likewise, they are acting at different levels. No finger is equal means they work efficiently because of inequality. Like that, at a higher level, we will be having synthesis, and that's how the synthesis of flesh and spirit has to be reached, and that has to be forged, and that is seen in our tradition. And then we have one more beautiful aspect in Indian culture, that is adhikari bheda. All are equal, but differently equal. All are equal in the sense of spirit, not in the sense of reality. And that's why the champions of equality should think equality is not a reality. See, physical equality, can it be achieved? No, nowhere. Starting from gender, we have difference. So, in difference, we can't have equality. Physically, we are not equal, even by physical features, strengths and weaknesses, different race, different age, and all that. And culturally, we are not. Different cultures have different senses, different ways. We all know. The simple thing, in old Mysore tradition, whenever an elderly person is seen, if we don't have a turban on our head, we used to have the turban and then salutate. But in the West, to bow down in front of a higher authority, women, means we have to remove the headgear, remove the hat. So these are the cultural etiquette, and they differ. Starting from such simple things, we have so many. And then economic differences. Do we have economic equality? Never. Never we can think of that. And also, regarding the social equality, do we have equality? I can't see any social equality. Married person is something, unmarried is something, divorced is something, single parent is something, multi-parent is something, like that so many we have. Multi-parent may be a new word of my coining, but we do have. Fathers marry thrice, mothers marry 4 times, then the children will have multi-parents, is it not? All this will happen. So, there are so many differences at the social level also. Likewise, all the thinkable areas, we don't have equality. Then where do we have equality? Only at the level of spirit we have equality. But unfortunately, the champions of equality, they are not spiritualists, they are materialists. The communists are the first brand equality proponents. But they are completely against spirituality. We say only at the spiritual level we can have equality, and I have proved it. But they don't agree means they are not for equality. They are hypocrites. They are just spitting and running, like hit and run case, spit and run. They are doing that. Then Islam and Christianity, do they respect spiritualism? No. Any institutionalized religion cannot respect spirituality. For institution will become the highest entity. That's why nearer the church, farther the Christ. That proverb has come. Because spirituality tries to have equality. But in Christianity and Islam, a non-Christian and non-Muslim is condemned to hell. When that is the case, how can those religions proclaim equality? And in the rest of the realms, we don't have equality, I have again proved. In Sanatana Dharma, the beauty is Sadeka eva asit, Somya tadeka eva agra asit, quoting the Vedas. Chandogya, it is said. In the beginning, it was one and the only supreme consciousness. Nothing else existed. So Syam, Bahusyam, that thought, Bahusyam praja yeyeti, I shall become many, it thought and multiplied. Ekaki naramate, alone is boredom, so loneliness is boredom, let me multiply, like that. This is a metaphor, this is an analogy, that's all. It is not the literal reality. But only one thing it is revealed, as Bhavabhuti says, Ekorasa karuda eva nimitta bhedat bhinna pratak pratyavashrayate vivartan avarta budbuda taranga mayan vikaran ambho yata salilamevahi tatsamastam. It's the water and water alone. The waves, the droplets, the whirls, all these are nothing but the apparent things, seemingly different things of water. So that is the one supreme consciousness, Brahmaikam. This is the bedrock of Indian culture. And unfortunately, whenever people ask, what is the essential feature of Sanatana Dharma? We start Punarjanma, Karma, Rebirth, that, this and all. How stupid it is. Karma theory is a superficial one. Karma itself is a relative one. Only when we have Kartru, we have Karma. When there is nothing like Kartru and Karma and Kriya, how can there be Karma? See, any experience, we forget ourselves. That is the nature of experience. For example, when we are listening to beautiful music, what is the sign of enjoyment? I forgot, I lost. And even in our languages, we have similar words. Manohara, Chetohara, Chittapakarshak, Chittapahari, like that. Chitta manas means, I already told, the seat of duality. Dvandvatmakam manaha. When mind is lost, the differences are lost. So when we are experiencing means we have forgotten everything. When the differences are wiped off at least for a while, then only we could experience. People say we don't have concentration because they cannot rise up to the level of non-differential state. When one could rise up to that, concentration has naturally come. See, when something is absorbing, we don't feel the time. We don't feel the place. When we enter into sleep, how long we slept we'll be knowing only by inference. I entered bed at 10 and now I'm rising by 6. So I had 8 hours of sleep. That is inference. But 8 hours was not experience. During the period of sleep, again and again, waking up and looking at watch means I would have slept. Can we say that as sleep? So, the forgetfulness of space and time, the difference is called experience. When that is the case, experience comes into picture, but karma is not. So, karma cannot be the foundation of Indian culture. And byproduct of karma is punarjanma, that's rebirth. To answer the continuous flow of karma, we have to take shelter into Punarjanma. Not all the sins of one birth are enough to complete, enough to observe and complete. We have to carry over like that. All this has come. Well, it has its own value, but that is not absolute. It's relative. Then what is the absolute yardstick? And how many people have the remembrance of Janma? If somebody says, I will say something else. Somebody may say, I remember my past birth and all. Well, I too remember. You had to pay $2 billion. Let me get that. If I say, will you agree? No, you say, no, I will say. Who will prove that? And some other shrewder person should come and say, no, both of us were shareholders and you took loan from me, so you have to give. Hence, all this is impossibility. They cannot be graduated to the level of absoluteness. Then where is absoluteness? Absoluteness is only in experience. That's why the bedrock of Sanatana Dharma, Indian culture, is Sat Chit Ananda, not anything else. Absolute existence, absolute awareness, and absolute bliss. Shall just try to explain in few words. If you ask somebody, how are you? How do you do? If the answer is, I am fine, no more questions. Why are you so? Nobody will say. You see, the very opening sentence of Tolstoy's Anna Karenina novel, a very beautiful novel, all happy homes are alike, but every unhappy home is unhappy in its own way. I am happy means no more question. I am unhappy means how, why, and all that. Because happiness is natural, unhappiness is unnatural. Is it not implied? See, when somebody is living, nobody asks why you are living in good sense. They may whisper and gossip behind him, but not in front of him. If somebody dies, oh, what happened, Allah, something like that, means non-existence will be questioned, but not existence. So if somebody says, I know, people will ask, why you know, with an inquisitive mind, but not in wrong sense. If somebody says, I don't know, why you don't know, it's so simple, you can understand like that. Means awareness is not questioned, non-awareness is questioned. So existence, awareness and bliss, they are not questioned, for it is our own existence. If it were not to be the ultimate end of our quest, we would have certainly questioned. To bring one more analogy, the fairy tales and the most enjoyable, beautiful tales of romantic princesses and heroic princesses and all, heroic princess, romantic princesses and all, in our childhood, our grannies and all used to say, the princess was saved from the clutches of wicked witch or wizard, and then the prince married her and they lived happily. Then what? Nobody questions. But in reality, then only starts the real story. Marriage is only a comma, not even a semicolon. But they lived happily means no more question. Because that is the very nature. So, this is the foundation of Sanatana Dharma. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Satchidananda, that is the foundation of Sanatana Dharma. And you would have seen in yesterday's Purusharthas, Yajna Dana Tapas, Rita Rina Dharma, and Adibhuta Adidaiva Adhiyajna, and also in today's Satchitananda, never did I quote any texts as authority to support my argument. I just recollected and put forward some of the examples and analogies from our own experiences. No quotation, no name dropping, no somebody said, some Tom, Dick and Harry told like that, because it is all in your experience. And this is the validation of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma never waits for anybody's validation. It's one's own. See, if I am sure of sugar is sweet, means even crores of people scream that it is not sweet, I will not accept. Even if I accept, like Galileo, only lip sympathy. It's a convenient answer, not an answer of reality. So, Sanatana Dharma never depends on texts. And why we respect Vedas and texts and all? Because they are endorsing our experiences. So, the scriptures are respected because they agree our views. But that is not so with Bible or Quran or Das Capital. So, this is the bedrock of Sanatana Dharma, eternal inquiry and eternal rationality of universal objectivity, well rooted in spirituality and equality of that order. So, Satchidananda is the foundation of Sanatana Dharma, and we shall meet by 11:30. Thank you. We had a very absorbing. Just now we were having very interesting discussion in the small break itself. Why we lost in these 2000 years? Is it because of the policies of people like Ashoka? That was one of the questions. I wanted to touch upon that, and I'm glad that that point was raised. Yes, I often feel so. Buddha was a great champion of Dharma, and I have great respect for him. And even Jainism, they are all nothing but the byproducts, internal critics of Sanatana Dharma. So they are part of Sanatana Dharma, whether they agree or not. I can prove from their own text that there are internal rebels, internal corrections for Sanatana Dharma. But the spirit of Buddha was misunderstood by many people, and even Buddha never thought of some of these things. Anybody is product of time, whether it is Buddha or Shankara or Mahavira or whosoever, we are all products of our time. So no person should be taken as complete. We have to take everybody with pinch of salt, sometimes with a bowl full of salt. Buddha, in his address to the Lichavis, he gave Saptashils, 7 Shilas. And the import of it is, Lichavis were the warring class belonging to Vajjigana of Vaishali, Vesali as it is called in Prakrita, one of the provinces in Bihar. And they were stern people opposing the advent of Magadha Empire. Magadha Empire was imperial, ruled by Bimbisara Shranyaka and his son Ajatashatru. These Lichavis were republicans, and everybody from the family, they used to be elected, and there was a Ganatantra Vyavastha, that is republic, and there was an institution called Samsthagara, a parliament, and Sannipata, people should assemble, and Shalaka Grahana, casting the votes, all these were there. And then a constitution like thing, Praveni, like that we had so many. We get all this information from the ancient Buddhist and Jain sources as well. These people went to Buddha and asked, especially the great leader of these Lichavis of Vaishali, the Simha Senapati. In Siha Sutta we have, in Sutta Pitaka of Buddhism, these discussions. And then they went. And Vassakara or Varshakara, one of the ministers of Ajatashatru, he also went to Buddha. How to conquer the Lichavis. And the Lichavis had gone, how to protect ourselves from the Magadha onslaught. Then he said, the Lichavis could protect themselves with these 7 steps. And the import is, when and where the war drums are beaten, when the war trumpets blow, then if everybody among your group, if they leave the jobs, their respective jobs, and pick up the useful weapon, suitable weapon, and rush to the battle yard, till then your republic and democracy will be saved. As long as your youngsters go to the parliament and actively participate in discussions and ruthlessly analyze the approaches of different people, till then your democracy is saved. Like that. He gives 7 steps. Most of these are the repetitions of these 2. But what I mean is preparedness in war, and then facing the ruthless attack with strategies, And even in the time of peace, aware of that, ever vigilance, nitya jagrata prajna, that's what needed. And the Varshakara is answered, Varshakara is answered. So, as long as Lichavis assemble well in the Santagara and the Sanipata, Shalaka, Grahana, they're all going on well, you cannot conquer them. As long as they assemble in the war field with full jubilance, with the prepared weapons of them, leaving aside their personal works, till then you can't conquer like that. But unfortunately, this Saptashila of Buddha was forgotten, and some wretched Panchashila was propagated by Nehru in the recent China war. You know, Buddha was for war. He advocated war. And nowadays, the so-called communists, they are saying Buddha as a great symbol of equality, social equality and all. True. But Buddha was never against kings. He was very close to Prasenajit of Kosala, Ajatshatru and Bimbisara of Magadha, and then Udayana Vatsaraja of Kaushambi, and Pradyota Chandamahasena of Ujjain. With all the kings and Brahmadatta of Varanasi, he was very close, and he had spent many Chaturmasas. In Kaushambi of Vatsa province, ruled by Udayana Vatsaraja, supposed to hail from the dynasty of Pandavas, he spent 20 Chaturmasyas. The account is given in the Buddhist documents. And he was friendly with all the republics. Nowadays, communists and the so-called intellectuals, pseudo-secularists, they all champion the cause of democracy and republican groups and say that Chanakya and then Chandragupta Maurya, Chandragupta Vikramaditya, Samudragupta, they destroyed like that, starting from Rahul Sankratyan and D.D. Kosambi. But they conveniently forget that Buddha was very close with all these kings. He never found any difficulty and he never made any disparity. His pursuit was different, but he saw. And during his time, no external onslaught was there. Only after Buddha, after 1.5 centuries, we had this onslaught of Greeks headed by Alexander. Anyhow, Buddha is also a person of a product of his time. Why I am saying this? Buddhism, in essence, is not against war, is not against Kshatriya. And many people, the Mallas, Yaudheyas, Koliyas, Malavas, all these Ganas, they were devoted to Buddha and they used to come and take their advice. And Buddha never gave non-violence as the only Ekamulika mantra to one and all. And many kings of India were Jains, whether Hoysalas or some of the Rashtrakutas, and not to speak of kings of Gujarat, Malwa and other provinces. But they were all fighting, they were all warriors. And many kings, though they were Sanatana Dharmis, they encouraged Buddhism and Jainism, but they were not withdrawing from war. So the Kshatriya spirit was there, and Jainism and Buddhism didn't derooted, it's not possible. But one thing is true, that sense of overemphasis of ahimsa was imbibed, knowingly or unknowingly, and Ashoka became rather a negative model. But some historians still say that during the time of Ashoka nothing happened, he became still stronger. Only during the time of his grandson Samprati Chandragupta and his grandson Brihadratha, the empire collapsed. But these changes will not happen over a snip of a second. They take several decades and centuries, and that's why the negationism or the passivity or the nivritti emphasis on nivritti, that is detachment and sannyasa, that corroded Indian spirit. Ultimately that has happened. And later the Buddhist monks, they conspired against Sanatana Dharma. They've only brought and they've only invited lot of troubles. In the Western India that happened. I need not go over those details. It's a separate section altogether. But overemphasis to any one thought and any one concept, it naturally destroys the spirit. That we should never forget. Again and again managing the body and spirit. That is pravritti and nivritti, trivarga and apavarga, dharma, artha, kama, these three put together they are called pravritti dharmas. And moksha is called nivritti dharma, that is apavarga. Trivarga and apavarga, they are very important. We do need that. For example, take our heart. It will contract and expand, not one action. Both will be there. If only one action means, it's gone. So we need that. Again, I have to stress the importance of dynamic equilibrium. Well, in spite of all these onslaughts and all, still we have hopes. Still we have opportunities that we should never forget. I think the three great ideals which our seers have given in the form of Shiva, Rama and Krishna, they pave our way to a great extent. Shiva at the personal level, Rama at the family level, and Krishna at the greater social level. In Shiva, we have harmonizing the contradictions. The Ganga, supposed to be sacred, and the garland of skulls, supposed to be inauspicious, and the ashes which is smeared all over the body of the burial yard, and also the burning fire, indication of knowledge, or the cool moon, or half of the body is Parvati, and yet remaining as Vairagyashali, full of renunciation, and he being Ishvara, Lord of all wealth, going with a begging bowl and living so simply. All these features, they indicate how a person could manage at the individual level. He has weapons in his hand and yet in a tranquil mood. And he is supposed to be Shiva, embodiment of auspiciousness, Mangala, but living in a burial yard, Smashanavasi. Means at the individual level, how to manage the conflicting ideas. And in Rama, he thought everybody as an extension of his family. When he saw Guha, he said, now our brothers are 5 in number, you are the 5th one. And accepting Sugriva as the 6th one, and Vibhishana as the 7th one, and then including the whole society. And the family group photo, even today you see, Rama means we can't think of Rama in isolation. Left to him is Sita, right to him is Lakshmana, and below him is Hanuman. This total picture is very, very important. And this is the symbol of family integrity. And the blunders committed by his parents, the lustful father manipulating father Dasharatha, is never a noble person. Good, but very strategy master, shrewd. But his shrewdness was not decisive in nature. His knave also, that blunder of Dasharatha, wanted to coronate Rama secretly. And also the greed of Kaikeyi. This family loophole is somehow hushed up and managed in a very decent and dignified way, in a rather magnanimous way, by two worthy sons. Rama by standing next to his father. If Rama had said, no, I will not go, what Dasharatha would have done? He could not even control his wife. Could he control Rama? Lakshmana said, I am ready to kill my father. Gurorapyavaliptasya karya majanatah utpatam pratipannasya karyam bhavati shasanam. He may be father. If he is violating the wishes of the people, wishes of the subjects, and wishes of worthy sons like us, he has to be punished. Punishment is chopping of the head. As Bodhja says, Rama, you don't walk in the forest with bare feet and making your feet injured and wounded and shedding blood. Let my hands become that. I shall wield my weapon. So he says. But Rama says, no, not that. He is welcoming. And also another worthy son, Bharata. Temptation came to him 2 times. Once by the mother. He renounced. And then by Rama. Even then he renounced. I am ready to carry your sandals and place it on the throne and wait for you. This way, the blunders committed by the parents were managed well, and the family unity was protected by Rama. And he treated his subjects like that. Please don't question about Sita Parityaga. It's a very big section by itself. I have to take one complete discourse of a week-long one on Ramayana. That's why please don't question. Not that we don't have answer, we do have answer, but it needs lot of treatment. Well, Rama is the embodiment of family, and Krishna is the embodiment of whole society. Every facet of him is for the concern of society. See, when Narakasura had in his clutches many women, in Mahabhagavata Purana it is said 16,000 princesses. The number and their social status is not important. But many women were ravished by him. Nobody were ready to accept them. After killing Narakasura, they had no place, no shelter. From the frying pan falling into the fire itself was their situation. And none were ready to accept. Then Krishna accepted them. If not, they should have had gone to Kamatipura, that's all. No other solution was there in front of them. So Krishna gave a respectable social position to them, Mrs. Krishna, in front of them. A board to hang. Means at the cost of his name and fame he could do. The social concern in him. That's one example is sufficient. So this inclusivity is very, very important. When we lost this power of inclusivity, the Scythians, the Polynesians, the Finnish people, the Huns, the Greeks, and many more people came and invaded, but all people belong to the pagan culture. That is one important feature we should never forget. They never belonged to any prophet, any one god, any book. They were all absorbed into Indian culture. The Rajputs, and even stories say that the Chitpavans of Maharashtra, they were also from some other group, some other community. That many people are there. All were absorbed. They became Kshatriyas and even Nagara Brahmanas. You know, many North Indian Brahmins, they have their surnames, Ravishankar Nagar, like that, Bhattanagar. All these people, they were absorbed. Means to all Varnas these people entered. Heliodorus, a Greek, became Vaishnava and he erected a Vishnu Dhwaja in Vidisha. I have seen that. And an inscription also is there in Brahmi script there. I have gone through that. Why I am saying, lakhs of people they were absorbed. Not to say about Mihirakula or Kanishka, Vivishka, many people are there. And even we should not think that the Shudras were completely condemned. In the Puranas it is clearly said, Nandantam Kshatriya Kulam. After the derooting of the Dhanananda, Nanda dynasty, of Shishanagas, Mahapadmananda, Mahananda and others. Chandragupta Maurya, a Shudra, a tribal person from the clan of Pippalas, Maurya clan, from the Pippalavana. He was installed on throne by Kautilya. We know that. No king of Kshatriya background existed. That's how all our historical records they say. Guptas were Vaishyas, and then Pandyas were Vaishyas, and Vaishyas have their Shudra background, of course. And the Mysore Wadayars, who ruled for more than 800 years, they came from the cowherd group Yadavas. Like that, you see, the Chandelas, the Paramaras, they are all people belonging to Adivasis and Shudras. Many Nayaks, they are all hunters and other people. Starting from the nomads, we have the business clan, business group coming and occupying the position as the rulers. That way, vertical and horizontal mixing up and dynamic society without watertight compartments was there. Like that, we do have these evidences to show that our society was never rigid, but there were many rules. I don't know to what extent they were applied. Are they wishful thoughts? Because all the rules written in Manusmriti or Yajnavalkya Smriti and Parashara Smriti may not be in reality, we don't know. But whatever may be, since 1500 years or 2000 years, we do find a rigid caste system also, and to an extent untouchability practiced. But people like Yale Bhasham, they say, in spite of all these, minimum number of slaves were there. When compared with Roman Empire or Assyrian Empire, Babylonian Empire, or with the Greek civilization, India had least slavery. Kautilya says, Natvet Varyasya Dasya Bhavaha, like that. And one more thing, spirituality was allowed and accommodated. Everybody had access to spirituality. And everybody had access to literacy. Dharmapal's beautiful tree itself is a good illuminating book. There from the British documents itself, he shows how all community had education. And we should not think of literacy in present context. Education is different, literacy is different. We have many such cases. Many women belonging to communities like the courtesans, the Devadasis and Rajadasis, they became great poetesses. An example of Madhuravani, for that matter, of Tanjavur, 17th century, belonging to Raghunatha Nayaka's court. She knew 6 languages, to versify in 6 languages spontaneously. She used to play veena and then perform Shatavadhanam. In 12 minutes, she could compose 100 verses. Tattadrak Ghatikardha Nirmita Shatashloki Panigramani. And she was a devoted student of Govinda Dikshita and learned many Shastras and used to participate in Vakyarthas. Not just Madhuravani. There were many. Rangajamma was there. Ramadrambha was there. Ganga Devi was there. Tirumalamba was there. Like that, many people were there. And even poets like a laundryman. In Kannada we say Agasa. Dhavaka, becoming a great poet. Or a person who used to tame the elephants. Hastipaka. Bhartramainta, becoming great poet comparable to Kalidasa. Like that, we do have. It may be rather stray examples also. In spite of all that, we do find no active interaction between the actual participants in the field and the theory masters. These dichotomies we have to face and answer, try to answer. We were wonderful mathematicians. We calculated so many things happening at the level of space, the heavenly bodies, how they move and all that. Even before Newton, calculus was developed in ancient India. But not one rule applied at the physical level. We don't have physics with the mathematical interpretation. Without mathematics, science cannot be treated as science. It becomes just wishful thought, vague hypotheses. But in the West, that developed. So here we have some missing links. I'm still in search of that. But what I mean is, we do have pitfalls. We have to agree our weaknesses. We have to stare at our lapses. We shall. That's why in the Upanishads it is clearly said, Hiranymayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham tattvam pushan napavrunu satya dharma yadrishtaye. The golden plate is covering, the golden lid is covering the face of truth. Oh, Aditya, remove it. Let us face it for the vision of Satya and Dharma. We have to cover the golden lid like myths and stare at truth. DVG says, on whose name this hall is, and that great soul built this institution, and more than that, gave so much of light and delight in the form of his immortal works and immortal character and conduct also, his ever-inspiring personality. He says, he is called the true person who could withstand the questions which are shaking his very convictions. He is called the true seeker. Yes, in our tradition it is so. See, if somebody says, are you a bastard? I may have to say, maybe, I don't know. Not that I am undoing my mother. In our Shraddha mantras it is said, if by chance, because of my mother's adultery, I am born, let me consider the person who nurtured me as my father, and by dharma he is my father, and so my Shraddha shall go to him. In me mataram lulubhe, like that the mantra comes, means have so much of openness to accept the questionable character of my birth. This is what illustrated in the character of Satyakama Jabala in the Upanishads, Chandogya Upanishad. A boy of 7 or 8 wants to go to school. He was son of a servant woman, Jabala. She says, well, you go. He goes to Gautama Haridrumata. Master, please admit me to your school. Well, my boy, what's your father's name and what is your gotra? To which lineage you belong? I know nothing. Your mother may know. Don't you have father? I don't have father. He thought father has expired. Go to your mother. Mother says, oh my child, I worked at so many places. I myself know who is the cause of your birth. But this much is true. Father is a belief and mother is fact, you know. This is my addition. But the spirit is that. I don't know who is your father, but you are my son. You are Satyakama by name. And Jabala's son, so you are Jabala. Satyakama Jabala. He quietly comes and says, I don't know anything about my father. I am Jabala's son, Satyakama Jabala. Such a bitter truth, burning truth, acidic truth, can it be so calmly accepted by this boy? Then he is Brahmagyani. What else I need teach to you? Well, you get admitted to my school, he says. And this is the spirit from which we have fallen. I feel like crying. But what to do? We have to stare at it. If not, our culture and we people will never get any solution. Well, now we have a few more things. Some of the salient features, I have to say, what is the distinguishing feature from others? I told we look at the most fundamental commonality, the underlying universality. At the same time, there are some differences also. They will be there. Some differences will be there. Especially with the modernity we'll be having. One such thing is regarding the dating, which is older, which is posterior, which is anterior, like that. So much of time is spent. And it is said Indians don't have sense of history. We don't keep track of records and all that. Well, it may be true. But our purpose is different. Means more than the records of history, we want to take lessons from history. We are more bothered about the philosophy of history. But by saying so, I am not ignoring the importance of history and the chronology and others. But what points we have that we should look at it. Like that when we see, we take the spirit of history. And that sense, history is written only when an event is complete. See, only when a civilization is dead, we start writing about that. Only when a person's life is complete, then only we can write a complete biography of him. Ours is an unbroken tradition. We can't write history. We can only think of currency, present tense. And that's why we are not tired of writing Ramayanas and Mahabharatas again and again. This is how living culture cannot write history. And again, we look at our acharyas. Nobody says, I am original. We are echoing the past masters. The same Brahma Sutras, they are interpreted from the realistic schools of duality and quasi-duality of Madhva or Ramanuja, or ideality of non-duality in the path of Shankara, or subtle differences there, Bhaskara, Yadava Prakasha, Nimbarka, Vallabha, many, many more. And even on Bhagavad Gita, so many commentaries are written. For that matter, I shall take up even more clearer example. Natya Shastra has Rasa Sutra, the cryptic aphorism of aesthetic experience. So many interpretations came. Lolata said one thing from the realistic school. From the logistic school of reality, Sri Shankuka said. From the realistic school of orthodoxy, Bhatta Nayaka said something. And from the spiritual school of idealism, Bhatta Tauta said. And his student Abhinav Gupta improvised that and propounded. And he gives all the earlier discussions and shows where they are wrong. And it says, we respect all. And I am now giving something new. I am giving something. What is that? It's already said by Bharata. Uktameva khalu nanu munina nahi rasadhrate kaschidartha pravartate. Means we try to connect any modern development to the older one. It may become hilarious also at times. One of my friends used to say, a North Indian friend, In Hindi, every thesis starts with Veda. Vedom में ऐसा उल्लेख है. If not, Vedom में ऐसा उल्लेख नहीं है. Well, it may be a rather trivial thing, but our tendency is that we try to make an internal connection. Wherever we go, we invoke Ganga. Even in this cup of water, I make Matsya Mudra, Gange cha Mane chaiva Godavari Saraswati, like that. Means what? We find our locus at any place and any time. That is our unique feature. That has its own advantages and some disadvantages too. But try to encash the advantages well, which we haven't yet. So here, our approach to history is different. So all interpretations, however diverging, are connected to one source. That's why even today Hinduism is a living culture. Even today Vedism is living culture. In the West, what happened? Every philosopher used to say of himself. And that's why every school became distinctly different. We have a lot of convenience also. But at the same time, convenience makes it to understand intellectually well. But emotional connectivity will not be there. Here we have emotional connectivity. To make an opinion, to build a nation, more than the intellectual identity, we need emotional connectivity also. I told about nationality. For that, this will be of use. Then we have another thing is old and new. We are not much bothered about the historicity because what is the date of Kalidasa? The discussion on the date of Kalidasa should not engulf much of our time to the extent of forgetting Kalidasa's work and discuss the dating itself. You go to any Oriental conference, Kalidas ka Titi Shuddhi par Antim Nirnay. Like that, since 80 years we have papers. No use. Kalidasa is later to Vyasa, Valmiki and Ashwagosha and prior to Bharavi and Bhanabhatta. That's enough for us. Should we perform Shraddha of Kalidasa to know the exact date of his death? To celebrate the birthday, we have chosen Kalidas Jayanti as Utthana Dwadashi. He has given 2 dates in his Meghadutam, Ashadasya Prathama Divase and Bhujagashayana Tuttite Sharngapano. So, that Utthana Dwadashi, Bhagavad Utthana Dwadashi is taken as birth of Kalidasa. Well, we assume that. See, this way, assume a thing and practice that, that is happened in our tradition. We don't want to go to reality. Many people ask, did Ramayana and Mahabharata happen? Yes, they have happened. With that answer, they will not be satisfied. Do we have the evidence of bone? Do we have the evidence of metal pieces? What all you know? Do I need the evidence of my great-grandfather's bone piece to say that he existed? I myself the example of that. I am the evidence of that. So, I don't know who is next to my residence. Honestly, I don't know. Who is residing behind my residence in the next street, though we share the yards, backyards. But I know so much about Krishna, so much about Rama, so much about Manthara, so much about Shurpanakha, so much about Virada, Kabandha, Jatayu. They mean so much to me, but not these people. Some Richard Nixon may be there in Cape Town, in Africa. Well, he shall be. What problem? Like that, this physical reality has no meaning when we don't have spiritual connectivity. So when it means to me, that is a value. Yesterday I told. Fact is comprehended and value is experienced. I am experiencing Rama, Krishna and all people of Mahabharata, Ramayana. Why only Ramayana and Mahabharata? This morning also, early morning, in the wee hours of this day, I was going through Homer's Odyssey in original. How beautiful it is. I was referring to the household activities of Penelope. No purpose, just I was turning pages of Homer. I just felt like going to Homer and I was reading. That means I connect so much with ancient Greece. When I went to Greece, I saluted every marble, every statue there. I recited some of the hymns from Hesiod and Homeric hymns, and also composed some Sanskrit verses on those goddesses and gods which are not respected and worshipped, unsung, unheard, unwept now. I can connect very easily all that. They are more reality than the existence which is around me. So this is how we think at existence. Once you feel it, you have it. If you don't feel it, you will not have it. This is what the world needs. Only by feeling we can connect the world, not by intellectual comprehension. This is also with the datings. And also in the texts, many times people try to show the contradictions. No, this is contradicting, that is contradicting. That's why we have our approach, Samanvaya. The ancient texts, their approach is different. Nowadays, text approach is different. We have to be sympathetic to this. For example, a book like Kautilya's Arthashastra has so many things. But what is the governing philosophy of that? It has more than 3000 Grantha Pramana. One Grantha means 32 letters. 32 into 3000. Such a big work it is. But what is the crux of that? Somewhere in the beginning, Vinayadhikara, it is mentioned. One line, Kritsnam he shastramidam indriya jaya. The very purpose of this science is self-control. Can one imagine a book written on polity, administration, economy and other things, such a mundane work? Can it have that as the philosophy of that? Yes, it's a very ignorable, seemingly evasive line, but very profound. Like in Bhagavad Gita also, so many things have been told, and even Arjuna got confused. Vyamishrameva bhashase. You are speaking in such a way that I am getting confused. Tadekam vadanishchitya, please tell me correctly one. Like that. On behalf of us, Arjuna has given his feedback long ago. But in Bhagavad Gita, we have such lines which govern that. We can as well feel, we have that. The very purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to overcome bhaya, shoka, moha. Kachideta chrutam partha tvayekagrena chetasa kachid ajnana sammoha pranashtaste dhananjaya. The last enquiry of Krishna. Ajnana sammoha. The ignorance enamored by me and mine, ahamta mamata. Has it all gone? Has it all wiped off? Nashto mohaha smritir labdha tvat prasadatmaya chuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam mama. All my ignorance and the clouding, haunting problems of me and mine, ahankara and mamakara, I have cast off, they are all dispelled. I am now ready to work. So, the steadfastness, the readiness to work, that is the essence of Bhagavad Gita, and that can only happen when he realizes the Atma Nityatva. And that's why the second chapter is the most important one. Second chapter is the abstract or the synopsis of Bhagavad Gita, the wonderful research paper. And the last chapter is a wonderful sum up. And all the intermediate chapters are elaboration. And in any elaboration, we may be seemingly contradicting here. When we speak too much, it's very likely to get contradicted. Language itself is so. The nature of logic is that Tadeta apratistitatvam nama tarkasya bhushanam, Shankara says. Logic is always untenable. It is not decisive. We can go on with all the logistics. So, this way of looking at the text is very, very important. More than the quantity of certain statements, it is the quality of the statements that is very important. Natyashastra has 6,000 verses. But the crux of Natyashastra is Nahi rasadrate kaschidartha pravartate. Apart from the rasa, there is no purpose in art. There is no purpose left for art like that. So these things we have to know. Mahabharata, What is the essence of Mahabharata? Even the same thing. The two trees of dharma and adharma are represented. Yudhishthiro dharmamayo mahadrumaha, Duryodhano manyumayo mahadrumaha, like that. And then Moolam Raja Dhritarashtraha Amanishi. The root of adharma vriksha is, the tree of adharma is the ignorant and then greedy Dhritarashtra. Here Moolam Krishna Brahmacha Brahmanascha. Here the dharma vriksha's moola, root is Krishna, the highest truth, and the people who seek that. This is the philosophy of Mahabharata. Like that, we have to know Dr. Vishnu Sitarama Suktankar, the great person who edited the critical edition of Mahabharata, a visionary, as a swan song, he delivered 4 lectures on the meaning of the Mahabharata. There he says, what an Indian peasant could understand, even the great Western savants could not. What a confusing chaos from the viewpoint of Western scholars, Mahabharata represents their own state of mind, but in reality it is cosmos, he says. Suktankar. Why I am saying this? There is a different approach that may be different, but not wrong. We have to know that. And I am not proclaiming this to show our superiority. I am just saying different. Banana is different from orange. I am not saying banana is great. Just know that it is different, that's all. And banana has every reason for its existence. And it has its own appeal. So, we should try to look at that. And for this, no inferiority complex or superiority complex should work. And when such complexes work, then we have science in the Vedas, aeroplanes in ancient India. All this nonsense emerges. Then, this quantity is not directly proportional to the importance. Quantity is never proportional to its importance in the text. That has to be known. And many times, the quantity comes to picture only for the temporality of that. See, newspaper will have so much of detailed analysis, daily news analysis. So much of importance is given to the realm of politics. But do we need that much? Detailing is needed for immediacy. And for eternity, we need philosophy. To understand any text, those details will be of no use. I have seen many ancient texts. Their detailing will be of no use. For example, in Manusmriti or in any Dharma Shastra, how a person should have his day routine, it has been given. None can live like that. If somebody lives, he will be living for nothing. His life itself will be meaningless. But the philosophy of that is within few verses. That's enough. Today, nobody can 100% apply Kautilya's Arthashastra. For example, regarding fortification, he says Jaladurga, Giridurga, Vanadurga, Marudurga, Staladurga, like that all. Fortification by water, fortification by forest, fortification by deserts, fortification by mountains and all. But today, when we can have commandos by airdropping and push button operation to bomb a place, what for this fortification comes? Then what is the philosophy of that? All that pages and pages of textual material, we need protection. That's all. Nothing more than that. So, in spirit, when we look at that, it is always very little. That's why I am not generally encouraging lectures on pure philosophy. Because philosophy is the distilled wisdom, and within few sentences it will be complete. And if people carry on lectures for years and years, means it is not for philosophy, it is for bhukti, not for mukti. To collect funds for their humble ashramas, which cost billions of dollars. And to smear sandal oil to their beards, they may be using all that money. And then structure and substance. This is again form and content. I have told that. And also the Adhibhuta and Adhyatma, again coming to structure and substance with the Advidaiva. We need belief. Without beliefs we can't live. So that's why belief is accommodated in between Adibhuta and Adhyatma. It's of a different plane. For example, uh, see, sun is a glowing physical reality, a burning physical reality, burning heap of helium revolving around its axis.